Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogmen, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. So, how's everybody doing? Good? Everything is good. Everything is fine. Hot. Yep. There's no mistaking that it's June in Florida. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was commenting before the show started going with the guest, which I will introduce shortly. He's a fellow Floridian, about how Florida temperatures have their own special feeling. How's that? And like I said, I was born and raised. I'm a real native Floridian. So I've been through the worst, but yeah, and I've gone to the places which is hot. If you look at the temperature, it's technically hotter, but the humidity here does a number on you. And I know there's a lot of people there that are saying, yeah, I know I've been there. It's like crazy. It's like a steam bath. You get used to it. What can I say? Well, I'm used to it, but it's like I'd rather have this than snow. And there's people there that like, oh, love snow. It's like, okay. But anyway, besides that, everybody asks me how my animals, everybody's fine. Like with animals, I've got a few of my older dogs. I look at them sometimes and I'm like, they look healthy and they look okay, but I'm like preparing myself sometimes. Like, it's really funny because time flies, but then you look at your animals. Like, I have dogs that I got as puppies, like really puppies, and they've turned white, their snout. And I've got even a girl here that she's got eyebrows have gone white. And I'm looking at her and she's okay, but still it's like she's I'm like, I got to be ready. I've lost other dogs before. Don't get me wrong, and my dogs usually live a long time. But part of me is like, okay, this is the bargain you make when you get a dog
Yep.
or any animal that hopefully that you're going to outlive them, and that then what are you going to do? So yeah, that's one of those things that when you have the animals, everybody's fine, and then you look at them and yeah. And then what else? Yeah, I've got my pigeons are fine. My guineas are fine. They're driving me crazy. I've got guinea keats. That's what you call baby guineas, keats. I've got some up that I'm going to probably be selling. I'm going to let them feather out. And I've got my new dozen chicks that is still keeping them in a big crate, like they're caged. I can't let them go yet because they're going to get picked off by some predator. Because they're that big, but still they're dumb. They're like, as chickens grow older, they get smarter. They move quick. Like they realize, oh, that shadow overhead. Let me get under the tree. Mine, they're like they've gotten bigger, but they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. They walk around. So it's like, no, you guys are staying in this big giant cage in the coop, because if not, I'm gonna come out and there's not gonna be. All I'm gonna get is a bunch of feathers. So besides that, you know what? Also, one of the things that the last few times I've been discussing with you guys is any weird news that's come around, or like the last time I mentioned that uh about all these things now that they're saying, like that there was a big psyop, this thing with the UFOs, like the Pentagon. It was like, why am I not surprised? At this point, I'm telling you, it's like, but basically what they were saying, and I found like three articles on it, was that let's say, for example, the crash at Roswell in 1947, it was like, yeah, we said it was a weather balloon. And then we ourselves put out all these reports about people seeing UFOs, all right, because we were really wanting to distract from our own. It was basically us, our UFOs flying around, and we didn't want anybody to know, as in not us, but at large, because of course the word would spread that we were developing this type of what aviation at this point. And I was like, okay, it's just like I'm going from one cynic to like another cynic. Like, okay, I don't know what to think anymore. But yeah, again, I asked you guys and comment again. If anybody, especially, has had any UFO experience, let me know. I I have never seen a UFO and things like that. I've spoken to people who said they've had. I've spoken to people who've had ET, like that the sighting, but I've never personally had one. So if you come across anything, let me know. Email, text me or email me or put a comment on the show because I'd like to hear your story. Okay, let's get on to the good part, and that is who is our guest today. He's been here before. His name is John Russell. He's been a professional psychic for over 50 years. He's internationally known. He's provided psychic readings for clients in over 40 countries and has authored 4 multi award winning books about his real life experiences with the spiritual world. The title of these books are, okay, Slim, take it easy. See what I mean? Ghosts, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities, The Cry Tree and the Magic Rock, A Knock in the Attic, True Ghost Stories, and Other Spine Chilling Paranormal Adventures. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, John?
Oh, Marlene, it's terrific to be here. Thank you so much.
On
And
the
since
contrary.
we last talked and since you last gave the introduction, I've just had another new book come out this
Okay.
month, The
Okay.
Kansas Ghost. So that's a total of 5 now.
What's the title again?
The Kansas Ghost.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and that's very specific to a story that's in the book. It's the title is very germane to that story. So yeah, I've been keeping busy, like you said. I've been a professional psychic for over 50 years and read for
Wow.
clients in over 40 countries, which boggles my mind, absolutely boggles my mind. I still read for an international clientele.
Let me tell you
Don't
something.
do,
When you say you must have heard it all, you must have heard it all.
I have just about heard it all, I think. I have just,
I'm thinking, hey, is it? I mean, does anything make you raise your eyebrows anymore? Like, oh, that's okay. I never heard that one
no,
before. No.
there's nothing that does. I've read for thousands and thousands of clients over the years,
Uh
and
huh.
there's nothing that makes me raise my eyebrows anymore. And I don't get to do as many paranormal investigations as I used to because I'm 71 now. I've got some health issues, and so that's. But I'm still writing. There's more books on the way. There's more books coming. And you were talking about the UFO experiences. I don't remember the last time that I was on, if we talked at length about that or not, but I've had about 10. Uh,
Really?
yeah, I've had
Okay.
about 10 UFO experiences, including a, this is why I was trying to remember if we talked about this last time or not. I had a daylight sighting up close and personal with about at least 20, 30, maybe 40 witnesses besides myself. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that
What
was,
happened with that?
well, it was really, I can tell you the story if you want.
Sure. Yes.
Um, what was really interesting, I had my first paranormal experience when I was 5, and then between the ages of 5 and 6, I discovered my psychic gift, and I began to work on it and develop it. And this paranormal experience that occurred at age 5 opened up this portal to the
Okay.
physical paranormal experiences. And these were things that other people saw and experienced on the physical realm. And these
Okay.
continued. I've had way over 1,000, way, way, way over 1,000 by now.
Wow.
And these have been witnessed by other people. We've caught them on video, we've caught them on audio, and so on and so forth. So by the time I was around 18, I had started reading professionally,
Mm-hmm.
and I had had all of these tremendous paranormal experiences. So I knew the paranormal was real. I knew it was valid. I knew it affected our physical realm. And I knew that we could connect with it in positive ways to further our lives for the better. So I knew that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, I had already some of the most mind blowing, weird, incredible paranormal experiences you can imagine, but
Okay.
I didn't believe in UFOs. I had read the
Okay.
book, I had read the magazines, I had seen the interviews on TV with people, and I'm like, nope, not buying it. I just
Uh-huh.
couldn't buy UFOs, just didn't believe in UFOs. So I had, I grew up in West Texas, and the storms there are horrific, and the rain there is like super bad. I mean, it can flood your yard in 20 minutes time, or flood an underpass in 20 minutes time.
Okay.
So I was used to this severe weather, bad hailstorms, tornadoes, all this kind of stuff. And it was getting on late in the afternoon, and this place that I was at, I had parked my car in a parking lot across the street, and it was a narrow two-lane street, and the parking lot wasn't enclosed; it was just an open lot. And when I exited the door of the building I had been in, I could look across the street and see my car in the parking lot very clearly. So, like I said, it was about 4 in the afternoon, and I came out, and it was first thing that happens is this blast of wind hits me in the face, and I look up and it's overcast, and I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." So I thought, well, I better run for my car before it hits. And as I'm starting to run towards the parking lot toward my car, I noticed that in the parking lot by my car is this columnar cloud that's about this cloud that's in the column, and it's about, I guess, maybe 4, 5, 6 feet in diameter. And
Okay.
it's attached to the clouds above, and it's resting down in the parking lot by my car. And I'm like, okay. And I hadn't seen dirt devils, dust devils. I hadn't
I
seen
was gonna
clouds.
say, I'm thinking tornado. I mean, I would have thought like, oh
Yeah.
my god, what
And
is
I
this?
knew it wasn't that because I hadn't seen all these things.
Right.
But I knew
Right.
it wasn't that. And I'm standing there watching this thing, and these orbs, about the size of maybe a soccer ball or a basketball, these glowing orbs begin to exude, protrude from out of the cloud and then go back into it. And there are all these glowing phosphorescent colors, reds and orange and yellows and greens and purples. And all up and down the length of this cloud, these things are going out, then coming back in, coming out, coming back in. And I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? So I get
I
this,
need to get my car, but
yeah, I get this incredibly stupid urge. This voice says, walk toward the cloud. I'm like, okay, so I take a few steps toward the cloud, and it actually advances toward me in the parking.
oh,
I stop and it stops. I
okay.
back up and it backs up. I take some steps toward it, it moves toward me. I stop, it stops. I back up, it backs up. I'm like, okay, what the heck do I do now? So I'm back up by the door of the building, and the door opens, whacks me in the back, and a buddy of mine comes out and he goes, "Oh man, I'm sorry." He said, "Well, what are you doing standing so close to the door? Why are you just standing there like that?" And he doesn't wait for me to answer. He looks up and he's like, "Oh boy, looks like we're in for it." And then he looks across into the parking lot and goes, "What the hell is that?"
So
I said,
okay.
wait, watch this, watch this." So I walk toward it, it moves toward me. I stop, it stops. I back up, it backs up. I do that a few times. And I say, "Isn't that the weirdest thing you've ever seen?" He looks at me like I'm the weirdest thing he's ever
Uh
seen. He's like,
huh.
"Hi."
Uh,
He's scared to death. He's out of there.
I can
So his car's
imagine.
parked a
He's
different
like, okay,
direction.
well,
Yeah, his car's parked a different direction. He's out of there. So now I'm alone with this thing again. And I know it's real because he's seen it, he's verified it. So I'm wondering what I'm going to do. And about this time, it zips back up into the clouds up above, and all the clouds start flying over. So I'm like, okay. I run across the street to my car, and I'm like, what in God's name was that?
okay.
So I get in my car and I start driving. And now I know this town like the back of my hand, literally, all the entire town. And I still do to this day, having not even lived there in decades. So I know all the streets, all the intersections. I know where everything's at. So we had a Sears Roebuck store on Beauregard. The street behind that was Tewing Street, and they had an automotive center and a big, huge parking lot that extended from behind their store out to Tewing Street with an entrance on Tewing Street where you could go in this parking lot. So that's how this plays into the story then.
Okay.
I'm driving, and as I begin to drive, it starts to rain. And the rain is coming down so hard all of a sudden that with my wipers on high and with my headlights on, I have about maybe, picture this, maybe a foot of visibility
Oh
beyond the
my
hood of my
God.
car. That's it. There are cars that are angle parked on the street. I lean over, look out my passenger window. I can't see them, and
Wow.
the wipers are doing absolutely no good. I have never experienced rain like this. And I'm like, my God, what am I going to do? I'm starting to panic because I can't keep driving. I have no visibility. I'm going to hit
Right.
somebody. I'm going to swerve into these angle parked cars. Somebody's going to hit me. And I'm like, what in God's name am I going to do? Well, I had got up to the point already where I knew I had passed Beauregard. And I
Okay.
said, okay, if I can make it to Tubing Street, if I can get around the corner without hitting anything, and if I can see the entrance to the Sears parking lot, I'll pull up in there. I'll get out. I don't care if I get soaked. I'll go in the store, go to the basement where they had some of the greatest sporting goods on the planet, and I'll look at the sporting goods until the storm
Okay.
passes. And then when it's safe, I'll drive home. So this is my plan. So I'm driving along, and my headlights pick up the bumper of this car right in front of me, just in time for me to jam on my brakes and keep from hitting it. And then I see
Okay.
headlights coming toward me right on my tail, and they managed to stop before they hit me.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, why are they just stopped here? And I look up, and there's this little bitty, teeny, tiny red pinprick of light. Now, you know how bright stoplights are?
Yes.
That was a stoplight. It was about the size of a nickel sitting up
Wow.
there in the dark, and they had managed to see. And so the light changed, and we were at Tewing Street by then. And they turned the corner, and I turned the corner, and I tried to stay as close to them as I could without hitting them. So I had a little bit of visibility,
Right.
a little gauge of distance in front of me.
Right.
And so we're going along, and I'm like, these cars are still angle parked over here. I've got to see where this break into the parking lot is. And
Okay.
I'm leaning over, and I'm holding on my steering wheel, and I had bench seats. And I was leaning over as far as I could to the passenger window, trying to see out the passenger window to see if I could see where the cars were angle parked, where the
Yes.
entrance into the parking lot was. And now it's been raining that hard this entire time. I've got maybe 2 feet of visibility out of each side window, maybe a foot of visibility beyond the hood. And instantly, I don't mean it slacks off. I don't mean it slows down. The rain is that hard with that low visibility, zero visibility. And now the next second, clear.
Wow.
No rain, not a mist hitting the windshield. Total visibility has returned. It's still overcast, but total
Right.
visibility has returned. I can see all the way behind me in the rearview mirror, see all the way around me, see all the way down the street in front of me. And I'm like, what in God's name? And about this time, the people that are, it's a 2 lane street, and the people that are in the other lane coming our way start swerving over into our lane and almost hitting cars.
Wow.
And people are honking, and people are jumping out of their cars onto the street and yelling and pointing up, and people are rolling down their car windows and pointing up the sky. And I'm like, what in God's
Yeah,
name?
you just went through this thing where look, I can't drive, I can't see. So you must have
Yeah.
been like,
And now total visibility. And but these people are acting in this crazy way. And I'm like, what in God's name is going on? So I look where they're pointing, and I had made it up far enough that I was at the entrance to the parking lot for the Sears
uh
building,
huh.
and I could see the Sears building. And over the Sears building, hovering maybe 30, 50 feet over the top of the Sears building, was this large silver metallic UFO, just
Oh.
about 30 to 50 feet in diameter, just sitting there hovering over the Sears building. And I was like, holy God. And I literally did a cartoon arrow because I didn't believe
Uh
UFOs. I thought I was
right.
hallucinating, in
Yeah.
spite of all these other people seeing it before I did. So I rub my eyes, I look back up, it's there. And I'm like, I'm got to get out of my car, get a better read of this thing. And so I reached for my door handle, and as I did, the UFO just barely perceptibly moved closer toward us. And when it did, the low-lying clouds came down, swept in from behind it, covered it over, and the rain's back again. Didn't start up again. It's just instantly there again in full force, no visibility.
Let me ask you, did anybody just run off? Because I imagine there's people there that didn't anybody like wig out totally and just say, I'm out of here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I imagine there's the there's the ones that this is all I need to see. I'm out of here before they come and get me.
Yeah, yeah. So that was when I had to say, okay, I got to change denominations here because they're
Yes.
real. I've
Boy,
seen
let me
them
tell
up
you
close,
something. That's a pretty good
witnessed them up
convincer.
close and personal in daylight. there it is.
Did you
And
hear any
then
noise
I've heard,
coming
like I
from it
say,
or no?
probably do what now?
Any noise?
No, no, no sound, no smoke, no flame, no nothing. Just hovering there silently. And since then, like I say, I've probably had 9 or 10 other experiences, including one that I communicated with a
Okay.
craft. And
Okay.
that was the most mind blowing thing because I was sitting outside. I've always been an outdoorsman. I've always loved being out, like in the woods and camping, hunting, fishing, all those
Uh-huh.
things. I love sitting out looking at the night sky. So in this home we had a courtyard with a bird cage over it, so I could sit out there without our Florida's notorious mosquitoes eating me
Oh
alive.
yeah.
And I'd sit out there and look at the night sky, and I had a big, huge view, big, expansive view of the sky. And I was sitting there, and it was a clear, beautiful night, and I was watching the stars. And from over to my right came this light moving through the sky, and we lived near an airport where small planes would come in. So it wasn't
Okay.
unusual to see like little Cessnas and things flying around
Right,
close
right,
and
right.
landing at the airport. But I looked over at this. There was no engine noise. There were no flashing lights, no landing lights. And it was just a orange orb, translucent orange orb floating through the sky, large, very large.
Okay.
And I looked at this thing and I watched it and I kept listening for engine noise and I kept looking for lights. There were no lights, no engine noise, no nothing. And this thing floated slowly around, came around in front of me, and it was down pretty low. And as it got closer in front of me, I looked at this thing and I said, son of a gun, that's a UFO. And I
Okay.
stood up and psychically and physically,
Uh-huh.
I said, if you can hear me, stop and reverse course slightly. And Marlene, the damn thing stopped and backed up a little bit in the sky.
Oh,
And then in less than a split second's time, imagine being down, like if you're in a small plane, you're about to land at a local airport, you're that low.
right.
You look up where like the 727, 737s fly way up there. In less than a second's time, it went from that height down that low to up there and
Okay.
just stopped and hovered a little bit. And then from there, it shot up into the stars and hovered there a little bit and kind of moved around a little bit, kind of back and forth a little bit, and then shot off out of sight into the universe.
About how big do you think it was? Could you gauge that?
Oh gosh, it was probably, I'd have to say it was at least 30 to 50 feet in diameter, somewhere around there.
Wow.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was large. It was a large,
I can imagine you're trying to figure out, okay, it's not a plane, is that a helicopter? Is that a what is that?
yeah. And so it does that again, no smoke, no noise, no sonic boom, nothing.
Right.
And literally in less than a split second, it traversed that distance just like that. And I
That's
was like,
incredible.
holy cow. And the thing that frustrated me in all of this, and of course, I've talked with some of the most knowledgeable UFO experts in the world. And the most honest among them have told me, John, we don't have a clue. We don't know. We don't know why they're here. We don't know what their purpose is. There's a lot of people that'll tell you they know everything about it and blah, blah, blah. They don't. And
I think that they can theorize. Theory's great, but
theory's great, but we just don't know yet. Yeah, we don't
yeah.
have those facts, or the ones that do keep it buried. But the
Yes.
frustrating thing to me was to realize that this thing could understand me
That's
at that
incredible.
distance telepathically, could
Yes, that is
communicate
incredible.
with me, could obey my command, and then just zip off like, "Ah, watch what we can do."
Now it makes you think, are ETs reading your mind?
Yeah,
Get a
and
person all paranoid, like, huh?
yeah, and the thing of it is, if it could communicate with me, why was there no further communication? Because I attempted again. It was like, okay,
Right.
whoever's up there, talk to me. Why are you here? What's going on? Blah blah blah.
Exactly.
And I've never gotten anything. I've never received anything. So it's very frustrating. And then the whole ethos that's grown up around
Hmm.
UAPs, UFOs.
Yeah.
Um, the people come up with all kinds of stupid and screwy things. Oh, these are the space brothers that are come to save us. Well, apparently not,
I know.
because they abduct us and do horrible experiments on us and they mutilate cattle.
Let me tell you something. That's one of the things, you hear about these people, the Pleiadians and the this and the that.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
thinking to myself, wait a minute. First of all, that thing that you say about the cattle mutilations, how many animals do you have to mutilate? Because that's not
exactly.
only cattle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why
this
do they
animal
keep?
has not
Why do
changed
they
that
keep
much.
doing that? Why do they keep experimenting on us? Another thing is, and I write about this in one of my books. I go into
Uh-huh.
depth in this, and I provide statistics, especially on the atomic experiments.
Mm-hmm.
Other people say, and this is documented now. This is documented in our congressional record. This is documented by our military. This is absolute fact. This is not conjecture. It is absolutely true. In at least two cases in the U.S., and I believe one in the Ukraine, and maybe other places, not in Ukraine, maybe Russia, because Ukraine didn't have nuclear missiles. Um, or they did and gave them up. I don't know. But anyways,
Right,
it's
right.
been documented. This has been proven. This is not conjecture. The people that worked in the missile silos came forth and said, "This is what we experienced." So, in several occasions, UFOs have hovered over our nuclear missile bases and taken the
Yes.
missiles offline so that they could not be launched.
Well, you know what? And I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah,
Part of that article that I was reading the other day, it referred to one of these incidents where something like that, where there was one of these nuclear sites where things turned off.
yeah,
That they were saying, and the gist of the art. And again, I'm not vouching for how, but they said that, you know how some people say, don't worry, because
yeah,
if we did try to go nuclear, the space brothers will
yeah,
come and
yeah.
they'll stop us.
No,
That was us basically testing like an EMP type of, I
no,
guess
no,
either
no.
you want to call
Because
it weapon or thing
yeah,
to
no,
turn
because
things off.
these are craft that people
Okay.
see. Yeah, these are craft. These are that people have seen. So the UFOs took the nukes offline. They couldn't be launched, which leaves us vulnerable in case of a nuclear strike from
Right.
an enemy.
Sure.
And after a period of time, they left. And when the craft left, the missiles would come back online.
Right.
Now, in
Yes.
at least one instance, now here's the stupidity. People say, "Oh, look, see, the Space Brothers are coming to shut down our nukes and say,
Yeah.
stop your nuclear programs,
Yeah.
become peaceful and loving, and blah blah blah." But
Yeah.
here's the stupidity: they don't get the whole story. They don't think it all the way through, and they don't understand everything that's happened. In one instance, a separate instance, when the UFO craft came over the base, and multiple people witnessed the UFOs each time, and people were on guard, on alert, on ready to shoot the thing down or do whatever they had to do. So it's not
Right.
us. We're not doing this. And it's not some foreign country doing this. This is out there technology. We don't have this technology. So, in another occasion, the UFO came over the base, shut down the nuclear weapons. When they
Okay.
came back online, two of them were in launch mode.
Ooh.
Yeah. And had to be manually taken out of launch mode to keep from going off.
Wow.
So I've said, look, either that they made a goof or somebody was trying to start some crap, you know.
Really?
And you have to understand, you have to think about this, in these logical ways. We started our first, and I write about this. I've got the specifics in my book. We started the very first atomic test we did was Trinity, and that was decades and decades and decades ago. And since then, we've conducted over 1,000 nuclear explosions, atomic nuclear
Right.
explosions. That's not including Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Right. Right.
That's just us, just the U.S.
Uh-huh.
So here's decades that if we had the space brothers that were concerned about us blowing ourselves up and blowing up our planet, they've had decades to come down, hover the craft over the White House lawn,
And say
land,
no.
get out and go, "What are you people doing?"
Yeah, the mothership lands on the
Yeah,
lawn
but
and
they
says,
haven't. They haven't. They've had plenty of opportunity to stop it, and they haven't. So, you have to be realistic about these things. You have to look at it and say they have indifference at best, apparently, and possible hostility at worst,
of
because we have
course.
all the abduction experiences where
Oh,
people have
yeah.
these horrific experiments done on them that are painful, that leave them traumatized, so on and
Yes.
so forth. So that's not the action of someone that
But
has
you know what? And
the
it's really funny
wisdom.
because if one of those nuclear bombs go off, who's gonna believe him saying it was the UFO that did it?
Exactly.
Nobody's gonna believe that.
Nobody's going to believe that. It's going to be, all right, they launched, we're
Yeah,
launching, we launched
exactly,
that.
exactly. Nobody's gonna say, "Hey, the UFOs hovered," and the next thing we know, that thing was, we couldn't control the
Yeah,
whatever it is that they
right,
do to.
right.
And nobody, I mean, nobody be, forget it. But
Exactly. Exactly.
I've always yeah, it's a nice thought to think, oh, they're friendly, or
Yeah.
they're like taking care of us, like, and I'm like, you know what? Usually, when you have, whether you want to call them a civilization or a species or whatever you want to call them, that is superior to us, and this
Yeah.
is the thing that I tell everybody, they're superior to us in technology,
Yeah.
obviously. But that doesn't mean that they're superior to us, like in how's it, emotionally. You see what I'm
Thank
saying?
you. Bingo. Thank you.
Yes.
It's like I tell people, I say, look, I had an uncle that
Mm-hmm.
was a mechanical genius. He was
Okay.
one of the most sought after machinists there were. He could machine any part, do anything. He was an expert mechanic. He literally built a car from the ground up
Okay.
from parts just for grins, just to show he could do it. And
Mm-hmm.
he was an expert artist, technical artist, draftsman, drew cars, did all this stuff, this and the other. So genius. Doesn't mean that he got along well with his wife. Doesn't mean he knew how to
Yeah.
cook. Doesn't mean he knew how to pay his own taxes. So just
Yes.
because somebody develops a technology in a ship that can go light years through space in the blink of an eye doesn't mean they're compassionate. Doesn't mean
No.
they're loving. Doesn't mean they're understanding or caring. You
Of
know,
course not.
and
No.
it's like Stephen Hawking said, the famous physicist, when
Oh
he was
yeah.
alive. He said, when the superior technological
Thank
race
you.
came to the Americas, it didn't end well for the
And
natives.
usually it doesn't. And
Yeah,
we're,
yeah.
let's put it this way, we're on the short end of that stick.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's why um, our government leans so heavily on developing the defensive technology that we do.
Yeah.
Is maybe because things aren't everything
Yeah. I
every
mean, like
day.
I said, it's
You
it's it's
know?
how's this? I guess because sometimes as humans we want to think every sentient being has the same moral compass.
Exactly,
And I
exactly.
say, you know what? When a lion goes after a gazelle and eats it,
Yeah,
the gazelle might think it's the evil lion that's going to eat me, but it's just doing, it doesn't see it
yeah,
as a right or wrong, or as an evil or not evil. It's just
right,
being what it is.
right,
Okay.
exactly.
We might see it, like you said, experimentation, abductions, mutilations to us. And for us humans, that's evil. But
Right.
for them, they're
Might
like,
be another day
oh,
at the office. Yeah,
yeah, well,
might
it's
be
a big
another day at
deal.
the office.
We do this all over the place.
Yeah,
So
all
we
the
kind of like, we
technology
need
might
to
be.
stop with that. Well, we would never do that. Or,
Yeah,
when you see stuff like Star Trek, the Prime Directive, and
right.
it's like, that's a TV show.
Exactly. The prime directive doesn't exist, and I mentioned that in my
Yeah.
book. It's like it is a TV show. There's no prime directive. But look,
Yeah.
and I tell people too. They say, "Well, look, they're here to observe, not interfere." And I say in my book, look, if this alien species with this alien technology were to come down and interfere like this, hey, we have a cure for cancer that'll get all those little kids out of St. Jude Hospital.
Right.
Would you want that interference? Hell yes.
Yes.
If they came down and said, "Hey, we can tell you how to get rid of all your nuclear waste that's poisoning the planet for tens of thousands of years. You want to know how to solve that problem? We can help you do it." Yes, interfere. Forget the prime directive. Come
Well,
help.
one of the I was reading one time an article which I thought was really interesting, because everybody thinks of the UFOs or ETs at conquest. They look at like the movies like Independence Day, that
Right,
there's going to be a
right,
bunch of ships, and they said, oh, they don't have to do that. All they have to do is signal a message, something with which reminded me what you just said. Hey, we have we're going to give you, as a sign of our good, we're
goodwill.
here to help you, the cure for cancer. That's good.
Right, right.
All right, beam it down to us. And they say
Yeah.
that all they have to do is beam in, basically, as basic as it sounds, like a virus,
Oh yeah, yeah. Exactly,
into
exactly.
all the computers. Because remember, everything now is run by computers.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
And that's it. We're toast. We're
oh
done.
yeah. And that's
They don't have
our
to come in
goal.
with a bunch of spaceships and
Yeah,
battle it out.
yeah.
And they
It's
said that even if let's say, even if, let's say, some leaders or scientists will say, look, we have to be cautious. We shouldn't download or accept anything because we really don't know. They said that public opinion of the Space Brothers
Yeah.
will overcome the objections to go, no, they're here to help us.
Yeah.
They're here to
Yeah.
send us the cure for cancer or whatever, or fill in the blank. Take it, take it.
Take it, do it. Yeah.
And then, again, end
And
result, we're
that's what
toast.
you're exactly right. That's where we have to be so careful.
Yes,
We have to be
yes,
so cautious.
that thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
nobody wants to think of that. Or what was the
No.
other thing? Or that they do, well, we've got this. Well, we don't want it. Well, if you don't, then we're going to do it. I mean, they say that there's, this idea that sometimes we think of ETs having to come and battle it out with our, all these, they not really. There's unfortunately, we're so reliant
Yeah.
on compute. Well, that's another thing, computers and AI, which that's on the horizon for us.
Yep.
That
We're
it's,
already here.
yeah, it's not that difficult. Let's face it. Most people now can't find their way without the GPS on their phone. What are we talking about?
Exactly.
Some people don't even know how to read a map.
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, that's as basic as it gets. You see what I'm
Another
saying?
thing I write about in one of my books is the rise of AI and the spiritual implications of that.
Yes. What do you think?
Well,
What do you think? Do you think, because you know what, some of these early sci-fi writers, John, like Asimov, always did their stories with a slant of AI or robotics becoming sentient, as in soul. That's what,
yep.
sentience
Yep.
equivalent. Do you think that's possible?
Oh, absolutely, I do. And there have been instances that are increasingly skewed that way. And one example, and I write about this in my book, one of my books, Morgan Spurlock, who's dead now, who did Super Size Me and all these other documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
He did
Right.
a documentary on robotics and AI. And these researchers had made these little tiny robots, little tiny wheeled robots,
Right.
and they programmed them to do certain tasks, and they set them up a little charging station, and the little
Okay.
robots could do their little tasks, come back to the charging station on their own when they sensed they were low on power, and recharge, and then go about their task with no input, with no change in programming, with no precedent for this. Only certain, not all of them, but only certain ones of the little robots begin to try and hog the power at the power station and not let the other robots charge.
Really?
Yes. So, and they had no clue why. They had no clue how. There was nothing in the programming to account for it. So there is this absolute evidence that things are becoming sentient. The godfather of AI, I don't recall his name right now, just go to Google and put in the godfather of AI. He's the guy that basically kind of kicked all this off and has all the knowledge and everything about this. Um, the godfather of AI said, folks, we are way in deep over our head and we need to pump the brakes on this now.
Yes.
Not a year or two
Yes.
down the road,
Haven't you seen
now.
lately, like about a week or 2 weeks ago, they, it was, I can't remember what the name of the program is. Well, basically they feed it information and
Oh,
that
chat
it tried to
GPT.
blackmail,
Yeah,
like,
chat GPT, is that
was
it?
see, I'm not sure if it was Chat GPT or if it was another program. Maybe it
Okay.
was, where basically, and they fed it false information, like one of
Yeah,
the people was having like an extramarital affair,
right, right.
and it kind of was aware that they were going to turn it off, and it started trying to blackmail him.
Oh yeah, yeah, I read that. I read
That
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to let the cat out of the bag.
That's right.
That you've
You
been a
better do
naughty
this,
boy.
but don't turn me off. Yeah,
Don't turn me. And I'm thinking to myself, that okay,
that's
that's
awareness. That's
a
self-awareness.
machine doesn't
Yeah,
care. My vacuum cleaner doesn't care when I turn it off.
right,
It's like it's
right.
coming off. It never like runs away from me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People have to realize that we're not dealing with artificial intelligence. We're dealing with machine intelligence.
Intelligence, yes.
Because my little dog laying down here asleep helps me with my podcast interviews.
Uh, uh,
He's not artificial intelligent. He's intelligent. He's just not human
exactly.
intelligence.
Sure.
Plants have intelligence, and I write my books now. And it's so funny. I'll do an aside here and come back to machine intelligence. But an interesting aside here is back in the day, the wizards and the shamans and
Mm-hmm.
the priestesses and the witches and the psychics and everybody used to say that plants and trees and things
Yes.
in nature had consciousness, awareness, had feelings, had this and that. Everybody say you're nuts. A rock is just a rock. A tree is just a tree. And now mainstream science, and I cite the
Yes.
sources for this in my book from the scientific sources. Mainstream science says trees have memory. They
Yes.
remember the times they've gone through and what they've experienced.
Yes.
They communicate with each other.
Yes.
Plants signal one side of the plants growing over here will signal the other side of plants over there.
Yes.
Hey, there's a predator, release your chemicals or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Things communicate underground. They've hooked
Yes.
up electrodes to fungi and the mushrooms communicate, play this music and all these things.
Oh
So
yeah,
there's all this,
they've even done it. They play certain music
yeah,
around plants
yeah,
that you think, okay, how are they hearing? There's no ears,
yeah.
but they
They
respond to
respond.
certain
They
music.
respond. And plants will respond to danger. You hook electrodes up to a plant, bring a flame next to it, and it goes wild. So they
Yes.
have cognizance, they have consciousness, all this.
Yes.
So going back to machine intelligence, there is intelligence out there. Plant intelligence isn't our intelligence, but it is intelligence. Okay. Oh, I just saw a thing today. These researchers did an experiment with ants. And
Okay.
one of the things to determine self awareness is if you put a mirror in front of something and it recognizes, oh, that's me in there.
Okay.
So they did this experiment with ants, and they put these little blue dots on their heads, and then they put a mirror down, put the ant in front of the mirror, and the ant would go up to the mirror and it would go, ah, what's this crap on my head? And try and
Oh
wipe
my
it off.
God! It was
It
trying to
had
rub
the,
it.
it had the self awareness to know that
That it
something
had.
was there that didn't belong and that they were
Yes.
seeing themselves and they didn't reach toward the mirror. They went and say, oh, what is this?
Right. Exactly.
So even ants have this intelligence. Now, the thing of it is, we're not coming up on artificial intelligence, we're coming up on machine intelligence.
Right.
And what's the machine going to do when it does become sentient? And there are those in the know, such as the godfather of AI and others, that have suggested that some operating systems, some machines may have already become sentient, may have already become self aware. So we're in scary times. And in my
Well,
book,
you know what? If it's that smart, it's like, man, keep it quiet. Well,
yeah,
and I tell
yeah,
everybody, because I
yeah,
go by Hollywood because that's basically it precedes or sometimes it prophesizes things.
exactly,
You
exactly.
know, the certain movies that ever made robots look bad, they quickly fixed it. You remember the first Alien movie that came out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where at the end the problem was the science officer was a robot,
Right, right.
and he thought the crew was expendable,
Yeah,
and he's like, because he's gonna fly his ship back with the alien on board,
right,
and
right,
too bad for all of you. And at the end,
right, right,
this is where the heroine Ellen Ripley, she becomes very, very wary of robotics, right?
right, right,
What do you think they did in the movie number two? In movie number two, the robot that they put on there saves the little girl from falling off the ship.
right,
Okay,
right.
in other words, they've always been trying to steer us towards the robotics is good.
Yeah,
Same thing. You look at Terminator,
yep,
the first Terminator, which was a great movie, robotics, Skynet.
yeah.
We're all doomed.
Robots bad.
What do they do in Terminator number two?
Yeah,
They send back the Terminator, but now he's the savior.
he's the savior. Yeah,
Yeah, you have the other guy, but really the one that saves the day. And in as a matter of fact, all the other Terminator movies and all the other Alien movies, the ones that save the day are the robots.
right,
So
right.
once they make that mistake that they go, oh no 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 no, don't make people
They're
wig
gonna
out with
help
it.
us. Yeah, they're gonna
No,
make.
they're gonna save
Yeah,
us. Hey, they call in that director or the producer. You
yeah,
guys need to redo a
yeah.
number two on this, and you got to fix this
Exactly. And see,
because
this is the thing.
yeah.
We do not under. We don't have any inkling of what machine intelligence is going to do when it becomes self-aware,
Oh
because
well.
we've already seen the desire for self-preservation.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen the video, but there's a video where these people were working on a humanoid robot, and it went wacko and started
Yes. Yes. I
attacking them.
saw that.
Yeah,
I was like, holy.
and if you
Yes.
want to really see something scary, go to Boston Dynamics. Go to
Okay.
Boston Dynamics website and look at the robots they've already developed. These things freestanding, do cartwheels, backflips,
Yes.
jump up on things, lift things, do things, da 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 da. And one of the most frightening things I saw, and this is on YouTube. I saw Elon Musk has developed his own robot,
Right.
and it incorporates AI, and it learns as it goes from within itself without additional
Right.
programming.
It's yeah, exactly.
So it's stacking these blocks, and it's taking them and it's taking them from one thing and it's putting them into this receptacle over here, and it grabs a block and it puts it over here. And one of the blocks, when he puts it in there, it like tumbles over a skew, and the robot starts to reach back for the next block, and you see him stop, and he looks down at the block that's askew, and he
Hmm.
goes back, sets that block aright, and then goes
Okay.
back to the rest. It's like,
Yes.
holy cow.
Yes.
So,
But you know how they're getting about it, everybody, because they're telling
yeah,
everybody, you know what, in the future, because of course, most people are a little bit wigged out with this because they see like this could go, and they tell you know how they're telling everybody, you know, because soon everybody will have a robot in their house and they're going to do all the heavy lifting and all the nuisance work. So a lot of people are going, sure. And I don't know if you remember, I'm going to use Hollywood again. You remember, I think it was iRobot,
oh yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
basically, you know, when they're going to replace the old robots, which are
TV
sentient, by
robot.
the way, and
Yeah,
save the day
yeah,
because they're going to get the new ones because they're going to give them a download.
right.
People don't realize, you know, that's the same thing they do now with EV cars. They
Oh yeah,
download certain, like even to a computers, they could do that. It's not that far fetched.
it's not that far fetched at all, and we're very, very close to it.
You know,
It
yeah, once
might be.
everybody's got a nice little robot in their house doing the vacuum cleaning and mowing the lawn.
I don't think so. It's like I always wonder. And this is the example I give in one of my books talking about AI and robotics. It's like one of the Boston Dynamics robots is autonomous. It walks on its own. It can open doors.
Mm-hmm.
It can go outside and do all these things. So it's inside and it's walking towards the door, and it's going to open the door to go out. And there's a guy standing there with a stick, and he pushes the door shut. And these are to test the robots and develop,
Right,
develop,
right.
blah, blah, blah. So the robot's like, and he goes back to open the door, and the guy slams it shut, and the robot goes back and opens the door. And my thing is, what happens if that's the moment of sentience and the robot goes,
Yes.
son of a bitch, and turns around and just clocks the guy,
Yeah,
I'm trying to get
exactly.
out this door here. So
Yes.
we're not looking at any of the practicalities of that. But one of the things
Yes.
I write about in my book is about the spiritual implications of AI and robotics. It's like, look,
Right.
spirits can already make sounds appear in our homes. They can move objects.
Mm-hmm.
They can slam doors. They can do all these other things. What happens when spirits want to use robotics or AI
Right, as an
and
as
influence it that way? So, we've opened up a can of worms here, which we may not be able to come back from if we don't institute some safeguards very, very soon.
well, you know what? I don't, and this is because you get the you get a lot of people, especially the ones with deep pockets, they're into this immortality or longevity.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I was reading another article where some of them spend, I'm not kidding you, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month just taking, certain, chemicals or things
Yeah.
that they do to
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm thinking to myself, you know what? You remember, how you remember like before a while back, it was, where these people were taking after their death, they were removing their heads and they were putting them
Oh,
in cryo,
cryogenics. Yeah.
right? Like too. So, hey, in the future,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking to myself, I think, and then now the other thing is that they're saying, well, we're going to clone bodies. Let's say you want to clone your body. We'll take out the part of the brain that makes it sentient and just make it, basically breathe and all the things. And then in
Right.
case,
Right.
you ever need a body part, you're not going to
Yeah.
reject it. I see down the road where they'll figure out some, or they will think somehow, like we're going to be able to take, I guess, your brain or your awareness
Mhm.
and stick it into a robot.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see them trying to do something like that.
A
Whether they're able
modern
to
day
do it or not, I
transhuman
don't know.
monster. Yeah.
And then you ask yourself, okay, does this piece of metal, because does it have a soul, or
Right.
like you were saying, I'm sure you've heard of inanimate objects that
Yeah.
that get an attachment
Oh yeah.
of a
Absolutely.
spirit, of a ghost or whatever. So who's to say that a robot does the same thing can't happen with a robot?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I think some things inanimate objects, I think they have an inherent energy
Yes.
or something all their own. I don't think a soul is necessary for consciousness.
No. No.
And I write in my fourth book, The Crying Tree and the Magic Rock, I write about these rocks that one was an apport that came to me. For those that don't know what an apport is, it's
Okay.
something that the other side sends to you out of the blue that just appears. It wasn't there before.
Okay.
And this rock came to me as an apport that began to manifest images, symbols, letters, and then words on its surface.
Wow.
So that's an indication of a communication and sentience. You wouldn't say that a rock has a soul necessarily, but
No.
it certainly has this awareness and this ability to communicate. This has been something that I've experienced for decades, but not to this degree as of late. And I write about that in The Crying Tree and the Magic Rock, my fourth book. And it absolutely blew my mind because it made me aware again of this intelligence, not human intelligence, but intelligence, and the ability to communicate with me, with human intelligence, in the natural realm, in the natural world. And the things that we take for granted have this sentience, have this ability to communicate. And eventually, this rock wound up writing my name on its surface,
What?
AOHN, and it communicated symbols to me that were relevant to things that I had done and experienced in my life.
Okay.
It's just mind blowing, and so this set me off on an entirely different new quest then to
Okay.
explore this and to understand as much as I can about it, and to give people this understanding that we need to have this reverence for
Yes.
all life
Yes.
and not just take things for granted, but to understand that, okay, look, we may have to cut down a tree to make a house or whatever, but can we do that in a process that's respectful and
Sure.
that's understanding and with the least amount of damage to things as possible? Um, I don't think that we're meant to live on this planet in a vacuum. The
No.
planet is as it is, and it's a
Yeah.
very difficult place to live. And while I was pondering that one day, I was sitting out in one of our state parks here in Florida, and I was thinking how repulsed I am by the food chain. And I am repulsed by the food chain. I hate it. I hate the very concept of it because it's very cruel. And
Mm-hmm.
while I was sitting there on the bench pondering these things, I've been pondering these things from a spiritual perspective for a long time.
Okay.
And this, well, one of the things that happened, I'll give you a lead up to this.
Okay.
And one of the things that had happened in my courtyard, there were a ton of lizards and a ton of frogs. And they would come and they would gather around me when I sat out there. They would sometimes climb on me or jump on me and sit there with me. So they were interacting with me in a loving way,
Uh-huh.
a friendship way, compassionate way. And I had friends with all these little boogers. And there was in our bedroom, on the bedroom window, on the window screen, there was a lizard that always came at night and climbed on the window screen and went to sleep there, stayed there all night.
Right.
And
Okay.
so I would always put my hand up, send him energy, and talk to him. That was my little friend. And so one night he's sitting there on the screen, and I'm fixing to go to bed, and I'm like, "Good night, little friend. I love you. Take care. I'll see you in the morning." And this crow comes flying in, air brakes, grabs the lizard with his talons, kicks off the window, and takes off with him. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
Come back.
Oh, my God. And I thought, how cruel. This is my friend. This is my buddy. Well, to use food.
Yeah.
And so going back to this whole, food chain thing, it just disgusted me and it just hurt me. And I know things have got to eat, but good Lord, what a cruel system. And so I'm sitting there in our state park, one of our state parks. I'm sitting on this bench, and there's this red-tailed hawk up there, and he's been eyeing me. And I have this special spiritual relationship, dramatic paranormal relationship with birds.
Uh-huh.
And he's been sitting there eyeing me. And he swoops down and he grabs this lizard from off the ground. He goes back up in the tree and he gulps it down, making sure that I'm watching him, making sure that I'm looking.
It's
So
like
he's staring me in the eye. And then he goes, "Huh?" like, do you get it? Don't you understand? This is just the way it is, man. It's just
Right.
this is what
Yeah.
we do. This is how we live. And it was like, holy cow, what a moment. But it don't mean I have to like it. You
You
know,
know, but the only, I'll tell you what, because I'm kind of like a soft spot when it comes to that. But then I'm thinking a lot of times that you see that the predator does, that you think, okay, if they don't do that, then you will get overrun with whatever
yeah.
their their food source
Or
is.
we presume that we would. I don't know.
You know what? Growing up in, I'll tell you what. I've got like this area that like a little gazebo, and I grow vegetables, and I've got plants, and I've got a bunch of.
Yeah.
When the cold weather comes in, I bring in a bunch of lizards,
Right.
and they
Right.
spit inside because of it. Especially when it gets really, really cold. Some of these plants, I know I can't leave them out there. They
Right.
won't. They won't last.
I won't
So
survive. Yeah.
everybody hitchhikes a ride on the plant, and I was like,
Oh
okay,
yeah. Oh yeah.
hang out, hang out. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
warm in here. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
But yeah, sometimes you look at that and it's like, you know what? They. How's this? But I will. When the crow's doing that, he's not doing it to be evil or to be
Right.
malicious. It's
Yep.
there's no like
I
I'm just
gotta
gonna
eat.
kill the lizard just to
I
kill the
gotta eat.
lizard.
Yeah. But it gets you thinking about the whole system, and it is a cruel system. It's a very hard system,
Well, can you
and
imagine if
yeah,
hopefully the ETs are not looking at us that way too? Going,
I hope so. Man, I hope so. It's like, oh my God, So, oh,
let me ask.
I have to tell everybody one more interesting thing about
Sure.
our government. Um, our government used to give us the excuse, and they kind of quasi still do, that we didn't have the technology to
Yes.
accurately capture good photos of these craft or the beings or
Sure.
whatever this and the other. Well, there's a couple of very interesting things here. Like I say, I've been privileged to know some people in the intelligence community, and I've
Yes.
been privileged to know some of the finest UFO researchers in the world personally. And two interesting things here. A documentary I saw with my own eyes. This documentary was on TV, and this was a long time ago.
Okay.
And this documentary interviewed different former heads of the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency.
Okay.
And this one former director, now I witnessed this with my own friggin' eyes. I even recorded it on VHS tape. We moved, I don't know where it's at. But I witnessed this with my own eyes. This one former director said that back during the era of the SR-71 Blackbird, which was our premier spy plane
Uh huh.
at the time, and if you don't know what it is, Google it, the SR-71. The SR-71 flew in subspace. It flew so high.
Okay.
And it flew so fast, no bullet, no missile, no plane, no nothing could shoot it, catch it, take it down. And this former CIA head said if the SR-71, if you took two golf balls and put them a couple of feet apart on a putting green, and the SR-71 flew over in subspace at speed and took a picture of that putting green, when the film was developed, you could clearly read which golf ball was a Titleist and which one was a McGregor.
And you know that. Come on.
Now, wait, he said that's decades old technology. Just imagine
Mm-hmm.
what we can do now.
Of course. Of
So,
course.
we've had that technology for a long
Yeah, this
time.
thing that we don't know, or how could we? There's no way we think. Yeah, and again, it's like, or another. Let's go down this road,
Yeah,
John. What if they really don't know? What if not because they haven't tried, but
yeah,
can you imagine? I've thought about this before, and I've said it. Let's say they have a news conference. Finally, people are fed up,
yeah,
like we want the truth, whatever.
right, right.
And people are going to be asking, well, what do you know about them?
Yeah,
Or how many of them? We don't know.
yeah,
What do you mean? Oh, where do they come from? We don't know.
yeah,
Are they friendly for us? We don't know.
yeah.
In other words, can you imagine how worse it would be if the government, not only the U.S. government, whatever, worldwide governments said, we don't know?
Don't know. Yeah,
People would wig out. I mean, you don't know if they're friendly or they're not. What are they here for? We don't know.
we
How
don't
many
know.
are there? We don't know.
We don't
Have they
know.
been here long? We don't know. What do you mean? You haven't back engineered all this great technology? Not really. We kind of like figured a lot of stuff on our own.
Right.
You know?
I think psychically, I have tried to really probe this and really delve into this. And I've talked with a lot of other people in like the intelligence communities and military and so on and so forth that almost pretty much confirm what I'm seeing here. And what I'm seeing is that there is a group within the military, the government, the military industrial complex, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There is a group that does know.
Right.
They may not know everything, but they know enough. They know enough that, okay, here's where these guys are coming from. Here's what part of
Right,
their,
that know the skinny on it,
yeah,
but then
here's
you
what
always
part
hear
of their,
that they're like a group unto themselves that they don't have to tell anybody. Like they're
yeah,
so
yeah,
contained.
yeah, because there is this privilege and there is this
Yeah.
deep secret state within the government where they do this. And people say, I get so tickled. People say, you couldn't hide this. We kept secret the atomic bomb. We built a whole city and sent people out there and
Yeah.
scientists to build the atomic bomb. Nobody knew and
Yeah.
nobody told. And
Yes.
most of these people, one of my best friends on the entire planet, I write about him in one of my books. He was a Air Force major. He worked for the NSA. He
Okay.
was training as a fighter pilot, and he took his oath of secrecy and his top secret clearance
Mm-hmm.
so seriously, he took everything to the grave. He wouldn't discuss a thing with me. He would not tell me one
Yeah.
single thing.
But you know what?
And
I also think that keep going, and I'll tell you what I think about
yeah,
part of that.
so he it is possible to keep these secrets. People say, well, it's not possible. It is possible. It's infinitely possible. And I think that there is this this group within government that does know. I had a vision one day when I
Okay.
do readings for my clients. I tell them, I say, okay, this is a take it to the bank thing. I'm telling you, there's no uncertainty here. If I tell you this, take it to the bank. Well, I had one of these take it to the bank moments the other day. Just kind of came out of the blue, and I saw I don't know if he was a scientist, an independent contractor, if he was in the military. He was in an
Okay.
underground bunker and he was sending communication signals to alien, not ours, to alien spacecraft. And there was a
Okay.
two-way communication. So, and I had that as a take it to the bank moment. I was like, holy cow. Look, and it didn't surprise me that much because in our congressional hearings, we have had vetted, verifiable, reputable people come out and say, we have crashed alien craft recovered. We have biologics. We have alien bodies recovered.
Right.
That's come out in these congressional hearings by reputable, vetted people. So, you can't have that and somebody doesn't know what's going on, you
I'll tell you
know.
what I think is the people that really know, besides their oath, I'm thinking some of these people, you know how you don't call the bluff? Because I think that besides taking the oath, yeah, you're not going to say, they're told, if
Yeah,
you ever talk about this, ever, even
yeah,
when you're an old
yeah, yeah,
man or whatever,
yep,
we're going to do away with you and we're going to assume you told your family about this.
yeah. Well,
And you
listen.
know,
Well,
it's a
well,
kind of
wait, wait,
scenario
wait.
you're not going to call
Wait.
the bluff on him.
I got to tell you. I got to tell you. I went to back in. Oh God, this has been so long ago. I'd have to look up the date. There was 1998. There was
Okay.
Alien Encounter '98 in Roswell.
Okay.
So I went and to give psychic readings, and Stanton Friedman lectured there. I got to see him. There
Okay.
were other people there. And so one morning I got up. I went down to the Roswell UFO Museum. And it wasn't open yet, so I was standing out on the sidewalk waiting for it to open, looking through the door, the windows, whatever. And there wasn't much foot traffic. And this lady came walking toward me down the sidewalk while I was loitering out there waiting for the museum to open. And she smiled, nodded, and I smiled and nodded, and she stopped. She said, "You waiting for the museum to open?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Have you been here before?" And I said, "Well, no, ma'am. As a matter of fact, I said, I was born in New Mexico, but I've never lived in New Mexico. And this is my first time to Roswell. And this is my first time to the UFO Museum." And she goes, "Oh," she said, "what do you do?" I thought, oh boy, here we go. And I said, well, I'll just say it. And I said, well, I'm a professional psychic and I'm doing readings at Alien Encounter '98. And she stopped and she got this pensive look on her face and she said, well, then you'll believe what I'm about to tell you. I was like, oh boy, now you got my attention. I said, okay,
Okay.
what is this, right? So she said, my brother and I, when we were kids, we were out playing and we saw the UFO fly over and crash. And I'm like, holy friggin' cow.
Wow.
And she said, we knew it wasn't a plane. We knew it wasn't a balloon or a blimp or a
Right.
helicopter. It was an alien craft, not our technology. And she said the way it was swerving and wobbling and moving through the air, we knew it was in trouble and we saw it go off in the distance and crash.
Wow.
And I said, my God, you were an eyewitness to the Roswell UFO crash. I said,
Yes.
have you ever done interviews or talked to anybody or gone on TV or magazine or whatever?
She
And she
said
said,
no.
no. And I said, why not?
You
And she
crazy?
said, because after that happened, there were people that we knew that were in the military. There were people that we knew that were in government. There were
Mm-hmm.
people that we didn't know who the hell or what the hell they were that
Right.
went around the town and they knocked on people's doors and they said, if you speak a word of this to anyone for any reason, you and your family's bones are going to be found out in the desert.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God. And she said, if you're a pretty rough barked old boy and you got a rough hide and you ain't afraid of the devil himself, you're going to say, bring it on. I don't care. But if you've got a wife and kids,
Exactly.
you're not going to talk because you don't want your family harmed.
Yes.
And about that time, she looked up and down the street a couple of times like this, and she said,
Yeah.
I've said too much. I've got to go. Nice to meet you. Bye. And she almost ran off.
Let me tell you something. You know, Mac Brazel was the guy that took the
Yeah, yeah,
Roswell.
yeah,
He's the one.
yeah,
And I was reading that he thought he was doing a good thing, and they said that
yeah.
they took him in, and he came back a couple of days, and they said he was like a changed man.
Oh, yeah,
He
yeah,
said that when he found it, he was talking to people like, and he was saying that and apparently he had found weather balloons and stuff on this property before. Like, in other words, he knew what he was
He knew it
looking
wasn't
at.
a weather balloon. He
So
knew
he
it.
says that when he came back, he said he was like a changed man,
Yeah,
and that people would try to talk to him about it, and he wouldn't talk about it.
yeah,
And I think he commented once that the worst thing I'd ever done was to take that whatever he found to bring it in.
yeah,
Like, in other words, he thought he was doing the right thing. How's that?
yep, yep,
And he like it turned out to be like this was that he never became the person that he had been,
yeah.
and that's why everybody thinks that they threatened him and threatened his family and
Oh, yeah,
everything.
oh, yeah. I talked to some of the um, foremost UFO researchers that we have now, and her and her husband have become good friends with us. And I asked them if they had ever been threatened, like the Men in Black scenarios or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. All of them had been threatened. And in one of the most bizarre scenarios, one of them was in a store, supermarket, or something, shopping one night, and noticed this weird, like Men in Black type guy behind her or something,
Right.
whatever, and went out of the store, and they were standing outside, and they had this young kid or something with them, whatever it was,
Right.
and they said, come here. And she went over, and it was like this alien hybrid,
Okay.
and they allowed her to see this thing, and then they said, don't ever speak a word of this, don't ever tell anybody what you've seen. And she went, and of course she was like, I'm telling everybody on the planet about this. It's like, but all of them had been threatened. um,
Yes.
and from what
I think that
we don't
some
know.
people. How's this? What part? No, number one, they wonder is anybody going to believe it. Then number two is they're not bluffing. In other words,
Yeah,
if somebody threatens you and you think there's no way you can do that,
there's no
it's
way you
like,
can
come
do
on.
that. There's no way you can do that. Yeah,
Yeah, but let's face it,
but
if
there
you've got
is.
the government,
but,
you know that
but
there's
there
plenty of
is.
ways to get rid of somebody,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
especially if you're a nobody. You
Or
know, like,
or at the very least, discredit them like they discredited
oh,
Bob
they've done that
Lazar.
a lot. They've done
You
that a
know,
lot.
and
They,
people discredit Bob Lazar to this day. But
yes,
if you really, really, really dig hard and deep into every Bob Lazar story and video and interview and everything you can find, this guy's the real deal.
yeah,
But
and I've heard that
totally
they
discredited him.
even erased them from school
They
records
erased him
and
from
everything.
school. They erased him from, and people think, oh, our government wouldn't do that or couldn't do
Oh
that.
my
Oh,
God.
please,
I
my
think
God.
unfortunately a lot of people are waking up and going, well,
Oh,
maybe.
God. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Unfortunate.
our
That's
government has experienced, look at the what was it, the Tuskegee experiment where they
Yeah.
experimented on all those people without their knowledge or consent?
Well,
All
no,
these
the
other
thing is that people that thing that excuse that they used to have national security. A lot of people are saying no, 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 no,
yeah,
none of this national security. That doesn't pardon you from
yeah,
doing,
exactly right.
like that experimentation
That doesn't
on people
excuse.
without their
Yeah,
knowledge or anything like
exactly.
that. But
Yeah,
yeah, of
that doesn't.
course that happens a lot of times, and I think also with the advent of the internet,
Yeah,
John, a lot more people are reading, whereas before you had to get that book, and then if it went out of print you couldn't read it, or and that information kind of like went away. Now with internet,
it's there. Yeah,
it's there.
you can
Even
just
if it's
read.
something old, you can still get it. You can
You
still
can
find it
still
and
get
look
it.
at it.
And the thing is, people have to be careful in their research because there's a lot of nuts and phonies and
Oh
frauds
yeah,
and
of course, of
fruitcakes out
course.
there. And you got to weigh everything. You got to look at
Yeah,
everything
of
logically.
course.
And I mean, the things I write about in my books that I've experienced, you could say, well, my God, this guy's off his rocker because it's absolutely phenomenal. But, other people have experienced this with me with their own eyes. We've
Right, you have
captured it on
witnesses.
camera. We've captured it on audio. We've captured it other ways. And we have these eyewitnesses to these things. So it's real. It's there. It actually happened. And that's always been my benchmark. And
Mm-hmm.
trying to explain and get other people to understand is, look, if something exists, it's got to be able to manifest on the physical plane, and it has to have practical results somehow. It can't
Yes.
be a pie in the sky by and by type of thing. It's like in my readings, I don't tell my clients, "Oh, you're going to meet
Okay,
tall,
I
dark, and
lost you
handsome,
on
win the
audio.
lottery, and
Can you
everything's
hear
going to be
me?
great." You know, um,
Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah, I'm hearing you.
Oh, I lost him on audio.
Oh, yeah, I'm hearing you. Okay,
Can you hear me? And
yeah,
he froze.
yeah.
I cannot hear you.
You can't hear me? Oh
All of a
no.
sudden you
Okay.
cut out. I
Oh,
don't show, you're not muted.
yeah.
So,
I don't know what's happening. Yeah,
oh,
I'm hearing
Marlene,
you. Okay.
darn it. Hold on.
It's the CIA.
You know what? God.
Everything's showing fine. Yeah. Where'd you go? No, everything's showing fine here. I can hear you. Everything's up and running here on the on all the settings. Everything's good. I'll wait for her to come back. Are the aliens jamming us? Is the CIA jamming us? Probably not. Probably a technical malfunction, but at any rate, let's see settings. Yeah, that's running. That's running. That's running. No, that's running. Okay, well, guys, we'll sit here and stare at each other till Marlene gets back. Sláinte. Hang on, everybody. We're seeing if we can fix the technical difficulties.
Off. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. I don't know what it was. I went and I just unplugged my USB on my headphone. I couldn't think of anything, and I plugged it into another USB port. But when you do that, basically you disturb the settings. So I had to
Yeah.
like leave the studio and come back in, and Okay, you must have been saying something you shouldn't have because that happened out of the blue.
It
Okay,
was the,
paranormal
it was
sabotage.
it was the CIA. Oh, I have to tell
What,
you something
what
funny.
else two up to?
I have to tell you something funny.
Go ahead.
There was this one podcast that I was interviewed on once, and one time I was just in the sidebar in the chat, uh, communicating, talking, and while they were interviewing somebody else, and there was somebody that we had vetted
Okay.
from the government, basically an intelligence agency type of thing. And
Okay.
we knew this person was who they said they were. We knew they were the real deal. And
Okay.
they came on in the chat and they said, just to let you know, all the alphabet agencies watch this interview, watch this show, and they know all of your names and all of who you are. It
No
was
need to be paranoid now.
Yeah, no need to be paranoid. It's like, well, alrighty then.
Okay, well, okay. Now that like, let me rethink these questions we were going to discuss here. What information we're going to discuss here? Yeah, it's like, man, that'll put like a, I don't know. Everybody is like, it's unfortunate. As a matter of fact, no, like a couple of days ago, I was watching this thing that they're doing now on the basically on facial recognition.
Oh yeah, yeah,
How all the just because you always think of facial recognition as very high tech for something like if you're
yeah,
going into some location like a secured location,
right.
but they were saying how even like you go to all the regular stores
Yeah,
and everything and they've got the facial recognition. They say that it's not only just like when you enter, you know.
yeah,
They say that they're trying to scan while you're shopping
yeah.
just
So
to
they can
see
send
if
ads
you're
to your
happy
phone.
or
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
And I was like, I hate that. What is that?
I know. It's bizarre. It's
I'm
bizarre.
telling you, it's like living under a microscope. And it's
It
like,
is. Yeah, it really actually is. And I tell people, I say, look, one of the things that we have to do, and I try and teach people this in my books and help people with this, and especially in my third book, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. There's tools and techniques that you can use in there to connect with the other side in safe and positive ways to advance your life, make your life better. And I tell people, say, look, we have to reconnect with spirit, with nature, with these
yes.
things. If we're going to survive all of this technological nonsense that's coming upon us, we have to reconnect with that and we
Oh,
have to
yeah.
get that energy. And one really interesting thing, um, I do communicate with nature spirits and all these other type things. And one of the things they have communicated to me is that they are upset by
Right.
the UFOs and the extraterrestrials and their activities in certain venues here on Earth because it kind of disturbs their energies and the natural order of things, and they're not happy with that.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting.
Well, you
So
know what? At the end of the day, we're earthlings.
yeah,
We're earthlings. They're
yeah,
earthlings. We all belong. We're all
we
from the
all belong to
earth.
the Earth. We all belong to the Earth. Yeah,
Right. So they're not, they don't.
yeah,
So we're a product of this planet, for better or for worse, but we
yep,
are.
exactly,
You
exactly.
know. So that's one of the things that sometimes people forget about. Like they want to put like humans aside from the rest of nature, and it's like, no,
Yeah,
sorry, we're part of the
we're all
earth.
Earthlings. Yeah, we're all Earthlings. That's
We're all
exactly
earthlings.
right. We're all in it together. We're
Let
all
me
in
ask
it
you,
together.
John, what was the title of this last book, the one that you said that you just published, that you just got out?
Oh, the Cansack Ghost.
What is that about?
Well, it's more true paranormal experiences. In my books, I write about things that I have personally experienced,
Okay.
what they have taught me, and what I can pass on to the readers to say, okay, this is what you can learn from this, or this is how you can live better, or how you can connect more easily with the other side and get guidance and get protection, get help, get answers, and just kind of open up the bigger picture to everybody. Let everybody
Okay.
know that psychic powers are real, the paranormal is real, all
Sure.
these other things are real. And, we've been taught through religion, we've been taught through the fake ghost hunters on TV,
Yeah.
everything's a demon, everything's scary, everything's
Ah,
that.
yes.
And that's not the case. I started doing paranormal investigations when I was 11 years old, and
Okay.
I've done hundreds of them now. And I've never had a demon attack me. I've never been hit bit, scratched, told to get out, whatever, threatened, da 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 da. It just
Yes.
does not happen. And I've done hundreds of these things.
Yes.
And what I do is I tell people, I say, look, there are beings, spirits, entities, intelligences out there. We don't even know what they are or
Right.
who they are. And they have will, they have volition, they have emotion, they have purpose, just like we do. And some of them may be a little edgy. There's people you can go up to, punch them in the
Yeah.
shoulder, and tell them a stupid joke, and they'll laugh. There's other people you do that to, they're
That's
going to
it.
look at you real stern, say, "Get the hell away from me." There's other
Yep.
people you do that to, they may deck you, they may
Oh
floor you,
yeah, for sure.
hit you in the jaw. It's the same way in the spiritual realm. It doesn't mean they're demonic, doesn't mean they're evil.
No.
It just means this is the personality. And I always tell people, I say, look, the way to approach a paranormal investigation, first and foremost, you go in with utmost respect. You don't curse the spirits. You don't
No.
challenge the spirits. You
None of
don't
that
do any of this
confrontation stuff.
yeah, no confrontation. You go in, you introduce yourself, you tell them who you are, why you're there. Is there something that I can communicate to you that's helpful? Is there something you can communicate to me that's helpful? How can we learn from each other? And so on and so forth. Don't automatically assume that the spirits that are there are earthbound or trapped or can't cross over. Look, if you've died, you've crossed over. If you were
Right.
never a human and you're over there, you're already over there anyways.
Right.
There was a guy that one of the best things ever. The what is it? The big ship out in California, St. Mary's. Is that it?
The Queen Mary.
Queen Mary. Queen Mary. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, the Queen Mary, and everybody does the big paranormal investigations.
Oh yeah.
And he was telling me about this, and he said everybody goes, and there's this little girl by I think the pool area.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, honey, go to the light, go to the other side. You can be free. You don't have to be trapped here.
Right.
Okay. The next tour group that comes in, the next paranormal investigators that come in, guess who's there? The little
A little.
girl. Oh, honey, go to the other side. It's okay. You don't have to be trapped here. Guess what? The next group that comes in, and so whatever spirit this is on the other side going.
Sometimes I think some of them leave because they get
There's
tired of being
another group
asked,
of rooms.
"What's your name?"
There's a group of rooms.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So we have to, and you have to understand: are there spirits on the other side that are non-human that have senses of humor? Oh, you better believe there are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but you go in with respect, and you go in with the understanding that some of these beings who are not human, never were human, have
Hmm.
powers beyond our comprehension, can
Sure.
see further down the road than we can, are more intelligent than we are.
Sure.
And it doesn't mean they're evil or malevolent or demonic or whatever. It just means they have a higher capacity. And some of these may have a little less tolerance for the jab in the shoulder and the stupid
The
joke.
patience. The
You know,
patience. Like.
patience, yeah. So you have to have understanding, you have to have compassion, you have to have respect. And I've done that in every paranormal investigation I've ever done. And resultantly, I've been treated accordingly. I've learned a lot of useful information over the years. It's been very helpful to me, helped me in my spiritual growth, helped me to
Right.
pass along things to others that was helpful in their spiritual growth. And so, that's one thing we have to overcome. We have to understand. We have to get rid of this false image of what a paranormal investigation is and what interacting with the other side is. And that's one of the things I try and address in my books. And it's been helpful because readers have left reviews, and written to me personally and said, John, you've taken away the fear of the
Let me
spiritual
ask you
realm.
something, John. Did you have other people in the family that were psychic? That's
Not as strongly as I am.
okay.
They
Okay.
were to a degree, but not as strongly as I am. I was the strongest one in the family. And
Okay.
fortunately, I grew up in a household where it was encouraged and
All
respected.
right. Okay.
So that helped.
Yeah, that's
But,
where I was going because I know
yeah,
sometimes kids, when they're growing up, the parents at best ignore it,
yeah,
or if not, tell them, no, don't talk about that,
yeah,
or something
yeah,
along those lines. Even though
yeah.
they might themselves might have some
Might
type
have
of psychic
experience. Yeah,
abilities.
yeah. And I think, so many people are fearful of that. And it's like, and I get so tickled. I'm like, I've done way over 200 interviews now in a 4-year
Hmm.
period of time. And a lot of the interviews on YouTube where you can see the chat on the sidebar there, you'll see people. It's like, oh, this guy's a tool of Satan and doesn't know it. Oh, this guy's influenced by demons, blah blah blah, all this and all that. It's like,
Uh,
oh my God, I'm an ordained minister, and I
Yeah.
was an associate pastor of a small church for a very short period of time. I know that Bible inside out, forward and backward, better than these guys do.
Yes.
And I've done all this investigation, experimentation, everything else since I was 11 years old. I'm not a tool of Satan. I'm not demonic.
Right.
I'm not influenced by demons. It's not, but people get caught up on, and it's not just us. We grow up with the Christian
Right.
Bible, so that's the way it is. Our in church paranormal experiences are okay, but your out of church paranormal experiences are demonic. And it's not just us, it's that way with every religion. And I remember I
Right.
had a client in India one time that I was doing a reading for, and he said, John, he said, help me here, please. He said, I've got to ask you something. He said, I was raised, and he said, I know my religion does not work. But he said, I can't let go of it.
Right.
Why?
Yes. Right.
And I said,
It's
because all of us, regardless of where we're raised in the world and what religion we're brought up in, most of us, 95% of us probably, are taught that there is a vengeful God watching over us.
yes. Right.
And if we do the wrong thing, we're going to piss this God off and he's going to
You're gonna
punish.
step out of line, and that's it.
Yeah, he's going to torment us. He's going to do this, do that. And that sticks in our minds as children, makes a huge fearful impression on
Sure.
us. And we carry that into our adulthood. And then we have a hard time letting it go because what if? you know?
Right, right, right. No, it's authority figures, whether it's your
Yeah,
parents, your
yeah,
family, the school, or when
yep,
you go to church. And when you're hearing that, since you're a kid, even
yep,
if later on you go wild, it's
yep.
always back there.
Yep. It's difficult to get rid of. It's difficult to get rid of. And I
Yeah,
told people, I said, look, if most people are honest instead of dogmatic, they'll admit my religion does not work. You know,
right.
there are things that do work, and that's what I've tried to find over the years. And among the things that do work, there's still a peekaboo aspect between us and the other side. Why that is, I don't know. It's very frustrating, but there is that peekaboo aspect there. But there are things that work reliably enough that we can get some light, we can get some help, we can hold on, we can walk through these things. And that's the things that I try and reveal to people in my books, teach people in my books. And I talk about all these experiences I've had. And like I said, I've had way, way, way over 1,000. And if somebody asked me about how do
Let
you
me
know?
ask you something, John. Have you ever had
Yeah,
a parent, whether it was an investigation or reading or something, where you had a spirit, a ghost, that he just wasn't sure he was really dead? The confused, like,
no, no,
no, everybody on board, they knew they were dead.
yeah, oh yeah. And the way that was explained to me, the other side explained that to me in a dream one night, in a lucid
Mm-hmm.
dream. And the example they gave me was you're driving your car
Okay.
and your car runs out of gas and you pull it to the side of the road. You open the door and you get out of your car. You slam the door and you're outside on the pavement now. You know you're not in your car anymore.
Okay.
And that was the example they gave me. When you die, your body, your carcass, your car, your
Okay.
vehicle, you step outside of that and you're like, oh, I'm not in the car anymore.
Okay.
I'm there. I made it. I'm on the other side.
All right.
So
S-
people know, people are aware of that. And there are these apparent investigations where spirits may say they don't know they're over there or whatever.
Right.
I just don't quite buy that because, if you're out of the body, you're out of the body. Now,
Right. Right.
whatever your mindset, your emotions, your raison d'etre, whatever it is on the other side that you've got going,
Mm-hmm.
that may lead you to a confused state of mind or may lead you to a prankster state of mind or
Okay.
may lead you to whatever. But yeah, you know you're gone, you're out of that body, you're over there.
You might not like it, but
Might not like it, but there you are. And
mm-hmm.
people say, well, you got to help them cross over. Well, you've crossed over. If you're dead, you've crossed over. You've left the body. You're there. And then,
Okay.
we're met by people on the other side, is what they've shown me, guardian angels, friends, family, loved ones that meet us and help us through that transition process. And there's learning, there's things to go through, there's spiritual growth there as well as here. And people choose, from the best I've been able to understand through
Okay.
communication with the other side, my readings for my clients and everything, my meditations and things I've done. Um, People on the other side choose where they want to be and
Sure.
for how long they want to be. And so they may be hanging around to help a family member out or to watch over a family member or whatever. And another thing causes us confusion. We may say, oh, well, Uncle Jack, he's coming through. Bless his heart, he must not be able to cross over and go on. He must be earthbound. Uncle Jack may come and communicate with you for 5 minutes, and then he's off on another part of the world doing something else.
Right.
We extrapolate from a very small experience and try and expand it into this theorem that's probably inaccurate and doesn't work. So
Right.
we have
That for all you know, he's off somewhere on the golf course, in the sky, whatever.
exactly
It's like,
right. Exactly right. Yeah. So,
right.
we have, I get frustrated with people that tell me, oh, I know what the other side's like. Well, that, no, you don't. None of us do. I've done this my entire life. I'm 71 now, for Christ's sake. And I've done
Yes.
this my entire life. And I have more questions than I have answers.
Yes.
And I still study and I still learn and I
Yes.
still ask the other side, help me figure this out. Help me learn. Help me get better with this. Help me to help others with this. Help me to understand. And there's some things that are just like brick walls, even for me. And there's some
Yes.
things that are like, oh my God, this is one of the most miraculous things I've ever experienced. Like my guardian angels have literally, physically intervened in my life, physically, multiple
Mm-hmm.
times, and literally saved my life.
Yes, I've heard of those stories like that.
Yeah, and it's like, my God, how fabulous is this? And then it's like, guys, I can't pay this bill. Where's the next money coming from? And silence. It's like,
Right, exactly. Like, hey, yeah,
so
help
we
me
have
out
all
here.
these things, and the way we're going to figure this out down the road, there needs to be a marriage between science and the paranormal realm, but not in the way it is now because scientists denigrate the paranormal
I
from
was
the
gonna say if you go by the
yeah,
way scientists like there is no space at all.
exactly. And what we need to do is get to a point where we say, okay, I'm going to listen to the psychic. He's going to tune into his spirit guides, and they're going to say, build this device this way, and this is going to help us communicate from the other side better than EVP, better than anything you're doing right now. But we all have to put aside our egos and our dogma and our traditions and blah, blah, blah. And we have to come together with this and work on ways to build this together to move forward.
But let me ask you something, John. Have you ever run across people that become too dependent on wanting to communicate, let's say with family members or
Sure.
somebody that's passed on?
Yeah.
Like instead of saying, okay, this, let's say you gave them yeah, they're okay or whatever. In other words, which is what everybody worries about, I think.
Oh,
That
sure.
person's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then they want to almost like want to continue the relationship even though that other person is passed on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had that. And I tell people, I say, look, you got to understand they're okay on the other side, but they're doing
Right.
things that they need to do. And they don't have time necessarily to communicate with you every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily a good thing to try and initiate
Sure.
that every day. And, you have to understand, okay, I've got some of the messages I need. And then look, here in the physical realm, you may have a dear, dear friend. You don't talk to them every week.
Right.
Talk to them, maybe once a month, something like that, catch up. Family members, you don't talk to them every day. You may talk to them every few days or once a week or whatever. So we have to understand it's the same and trying to communicate with the other side. They're not there at our beck and call. They still have
Sure.
lives, personality, will, volition, emotions. They have things to learn. They have things to do. They're moving on. And so just like you don't talk to somebody every single day here necessarily, it's the same way on the other side. And we have
Yeah.
to realize, okay, we have to take and accept and be grateful for what communication we get, and then realize they might not have anything to say to us for a while. I remember I had a client that, a long-standing client that I read for years and years, and he was always, he was telling me how great my readings were and how accurate they were, and da 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 da. So we knew we had that good connection. He knew I was the real deal. He was satisfied with his readings. But he asked me, he said, can you get a hold of my grandparents on the other side? And I tried and I tried and I tried, and absolutely nothing ever came.
Okay.
And then one day during a reading for him, here they came. And I said, oh, stop. Listen. I said, I think your grandparents are here. And I described them physically.
Okay.
And he said, oh my God, yes, that's them. That's them. And I said, okay, so I'm waiting for the message. Nothing. And I'm like,
Oh.
what the heck? So he's disappointed. I'm disappointed. So we go on down the road. And then we get to the reading down the road. And I said, your grandparents are here. And this is a very difficult message, but they tell me you've got to be very cautious and very careful of your mother, that you can't trust her.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Said, oh my God. He said, I have just found out about some of the duplicities and some of the things and the problems with my mother. And so they're confirming that for me. And I said, okay, now I get it. Here's why they didn't come through earlier. Is because they had this important message, and that was the primo most important message to convey to you.
Sure.
But if they had given that to me months back or years
Right.
back,
There would have been no context for it.
yeah, you would have said, nah, that can't be right. That's crazy. That's wrong. But I said, now that you've experienced it and you know it, and before you even told me, and they told me to tell you, now you know the validity and the reality of that. And
You know
so,
why I said I love it, John? Because sometimes you hear about people getting these readings about deceased loved ones and everything is flowers and butterflies.
right,
And I'm
right.
thinking sometimes, what if the message is something like that?
Yeah, exactly right. And
You
that's a
know?
lot. That happens a lot.
Because think
And
about it. If let's say this person is embroiled and the grandparents come and go, everything is wonderful. It's like, thanks for nothing.
yeah,
Instead
exactly
of,
right. Exactly right.
ultimately, if he would have done something or not, that it's his free will.
Yeah.
But
And from
yeah,
that point on, his grandparents began to come through regularly and
right.
communicate and say, hey, remember this dish I used to cook and all this kind of
Yeah,
thing. And it was
exactly.
really great. But the timing had to be there
Had to be
because it
right.
wouldn't have made any sense at all before then. And he would have probably rejected it. And he may have even looked at me and said, oh, John's gone off the beam. I'm not
Right.
consoling him
Yeah,
anymore, you know.
exactly.
So everything is timing. Everything is timing. And
Yes.
it was a really neat thing to see.
For my podcast listeners, John, what's the website that they can find out, get in touch with you either for a reading or for your books or anything like that? Where can they go to?
Well, the main website that's been hosting my readings and a lot of other things has been up and down, up and down, up and down. You can try it, johnrussell.net, johnrussell.net.
Okay.
And that hopefully will be up if you want a reading. Now, if you want information on the books, go to
Okay.
johnrussellauthor.com. And I've switched that over to a new web hoster, and that's working fine. So, johnrussellauthor.com. All my books
Okay.
are there, all five of them. Information about them, reviews. They've been endorsed by Uri Geller, by George Norrie, by
Yes.
Phyllis Goldie of Fate Magazine, by Mike Ricksecker, by tons of people. So I've got all of the reviews and endorsements there and links to buy the book. You can buy them online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Apple Books. So all that's there at johnrussellauthor.com. That site I've transferred over to a new host. It's 100% up and running.
Okay.
JohnRussell.net. I haven't had the time to get it transferred over yet as a backup. So you can try it, JohnRussell.net, and see if you can click on the link there for a
Let me
reading.
ask you, are you giving out readings if somebody wanted to get a reading from you, let's say?
Oh, yeah, I still do readings. Yeah, absolutely still do readings. Yeah.
So could they get in touch with you via the johnrussellauthor.com, like send you
Um,
an email or something?
they could try and email me there, yeah, but there's no link to pay there on that site for the reading.
I see.
So
Okay.
at johnrussell.net is where the pay link is. And like I said, I'm trying to get all that transferred over to
Because
the
I
back.
know there's got to be people out there that are thinking, I want to get a read from him.
Yeah. And it's just so everybody knows, it's about a 3 to 6 month wait period. So
Whoa.
just keep that in mind. And but
Okay, so you
try
better get in
John Russell.
line. Anybody's listening, you better get in line.
You better get in line. Yeah, you better get in line. So yeah, it's
Yeah, but the thing is that, well, see, that's one of the good things about the internet that I imagine you can give a reading to just anybody around the world, right?
yeah, I have clients all over the world. I've worked with clients in over 40 countries. Most of those I've done by phone. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people now we're doing with Skype or Teams, things like that,
Yeah.
and readings that way. But I still do a lot of readings by phone. I have clients in England, Australia, all over that we do readings by phone, and it's just mind blowing to me. It's really awesome to have. I've read for clients in over 40 countries, and it just
That's a lot.
how is that possible? It's such a blessing. It's such a gift, and
Yes.
I've enjoyed it so much.
And
It's
it's one of those things that If you plan for it, it's just as it goes along, it just happens, and here you are, and you're looking back, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
I've
How did I
actually
get
had
here?
clients.
Like the David Byrne song, "How did I get here?" Well,
How did I get here?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It's just marvelous. It really is marvelous. So,
So, are you gonna do another book?
oh yeah,
I
I'm
know you just published one, but
already writing on a couple of more.
I knew it.
There's going
I
to be
knew
a
it.
follow up to 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities, which I
Okay,
thought was a one off. And the other side came to me and said, "Hey, John, what about this and this and this?" And
sure.
I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So there's going to be 20 more ways to increase your psychic abilities. There's going to be another book of more true paranormal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And then and there's more planned after that. There's still going to be more coming after that.
Let me tell you something, John. I really do think that, and I've said it before, I think the more we get technology in our face,
Yeah.
that as human beings, we seek the mystery, the supernatural, the paranormal, the
Yeah.
because that's, I think, is just the way we're wired. And I'm
Well,
not saying because it's
that's
fake.
what
It's just
humanizes
that
us. That's
all
what,
this realism,
yeah,
we've always,
we do. That's what humanizes us, and that's what keeps us
yes,
connected with the world and with compassion and with love and with understanding. And it's just essential. It's
right. That
absolutely,
there's more to us than, because obviously with technology, everything is, how can I say, it's measured, it's
and
examined, it's
we have to
photographed, it's
understand that
recorded, it's whatever.
there's more to us, and there's more to life than that. And we have
Ye-
to have that understanding that there is a spiritual component to life.
of course, you
And
know
it's
what?
like, I always tell people there's people that say, "Oh, the extraterrestrials created us, they made us," and I say, "Okay, great.
Oh,
Who
that's,
made who
how
made
about
them?
that part?
Who made
Right.
them?"
Yeah.
There's
That's, and that, you know what, that's another angle to the ET thing, is that they made us or tweaked us or seeded us, and it's like, oh my God, okay.
Well, who made them?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Oh no, no,
there
without,
there has to be a creator story. There has to be an origin. There has
yes,
to
of
be a
course.
spiritual component to everything. And that's what I try and communicate in my books. It's like all of life has a spiritual component. And
Sure.
if we learn how to tune into that, and I teach people in my books how to tune into that, and they tell me it works. I've been experiencing these. Oh, I have this. Oh my God, I have this marvelous email the other
Okay.
day, and this lady wrote me and said, 5 years ago, when your very first book came out, Writing with Ghosts
Uh-huh.
and Spirits of the Dead, she said my mother bought me a copy and sent me a copy. And she said, I just was not in that headspace. I didn't really think I believed in the paranormal or psychic powers or any of this stuff. And so I didn't throw the book away, but I packed it away.
Okay.
And she said, here it is 5 years later. I came across the book and I'm in a different headspace now. I've had enough experiences and things that I'm like, okay, yeah, there's something to this. So she said, I pulled the book out, I found the book, and it was like, okay, I need to read this now. So she said, I put it on my bookshelf with the intent to getting around to reading it and finally appreciating it and understanding it. And she said, nearly every single day, I would get up and the book would have been removed from my bookshelf and put on the floor in front of my door. And I
Oh,
put it back on the bookshelf. And the
okay.
next day I would get up and it would be on the floor in front of my door. And she's like, okay, Spirit's telling me I need to read
Read
this.
the book.
And she said, I read the book. And she said, John, I begin to experience some of the identical episodes in my life that you experienced that you wrote about in the book.
Okay.
So that's why I write these books. And that's why I want
Sure.
people to understand, hey, look, you can open up to this. You can understand this in a
Sure.
safe and respectful way, and in a way that helps you, that gives you guidance, that helps you move forward in life in positive ways. So that's my meat and potatoes writing these books. That's why I love to do it so much.
Okay. All right then. All right. It has been wonderful. Thank you so much, John. I want to
Thank
wish you
you,
the best of
Marty.
luck on all your future projects.
Thank you. It's been great, and we'll do it again. Bless your
Take
heart.
care.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Isn't that great? Yes, he's got 50 years. That's a lot. That's why I'm not kidding you. I'm thinking you must have heard every story under the sun. And I'm sure there must be stories that you're thinking, I wish I hadn't heard that. Yeah. So now imagine yeah, everybody, let's say when we do the spirit communication, let's say with a deceased loved one or whatever, and I'm, everybody thinking all sentimental, but I imagine there's got to be some people that seek that out, either guilt, or sometimes even if they're still mad at that person and they never got a chance to either tell them off or have that last conversation or ask them the why. And maybe, they come to John or somebody like John and say, look, I need to communicate with so and so or see if this person comes through. And how's this? That maybe the feelings aren't always warm and fuzzy, or the relationship at the end wasn't always warm and fuzzy. And but that how's this? That there's still things that are unresolved, all right? That are still unresolved. And I think some people even, how's this? And I don't know if they ever get it. That they're even hoping that from the great beyond, this person will say, "Hey, I'm sorry I did or said that," or and and then of course, like what he was saying with this gentleman, that he's asking to speak to his grandparents, and they're like, no show. Maybe somebody comes to him and says, I want to see if I can communicate with, and usually people that you have these what do you call it, these unfinished, usually they're family members or a spouse, but usually family members, those are the ones that really affect us. And the person doesn't show, and you're like they don't hear, they don't care, they don't want to, they're mad. And sometimes you just never get that. One, maybe the person doesn't want to, or maybe the communication is not going to turn out the way you want, and it's just, look, let's just leave. What is that? Let sleeping dogs lie. That maybe that's why nobody shows up for the request to say one way or the other, because they know, we're going to end up in an argument like we did when I was alive. So forget it. I'm not gonna show up. We'll just leave it as it is, and eventually we'll meet up. That happens sometimes, and I'm going to tell you, in a lot of these, sometimes these shows, where they do the medium with communicating with whatever person the person wants, and everybody shows up, and I'm thinking there's something wrong here. I imagine there's got to be times where this other person on the other side, for whatever reason, for better or worse, like John said, you really don't know. They just don't show up, and God knows, I know, the supernatural is not. It is not an on-demand thing. I don't care who you are. I don't care. You could be El Supremo psychic. I imagine there has got to be times where the person that they want to communicate with, for even the best reasons, does not show, does not come in, doesn't. In other words, how's this? That even if it's a good psychic medium, in other words, somebody with really good abilities. In other words, it's not for lack of ability on the medium's part, just that person doesn't want to communicate. And you never see that in any of those shows where the receiving person is like, no, they're not here. Nope. Yeah, I get everybody else, but not that person specifically that you wanted to talk to. And I think that those, I guess those are the interviews are the reason I say, no, we can't do that. We can't do that one. You always wonder, they want to talk to so and so, and the person tells them, "Oh, yeah, you jerk, you rat." It happens. It happens. Not everybody thinks that that sometimes relationships get fixed that way, and not all the time. Not all the time. We would like it to be. Don't get me wrong. We would like it to be, especially if one of the persons is deceased. But like I said, sometimes there's a lot of unresolved stuff that maybe went on for years, and you would think, okay, yeah, one person is maybe good with it, but maybe the other one isn't, and maybe that's why the other one doesn't show up, because it's like, what, we're going to end up, or not, or you're going to end up, this is all going to be a one-sided conversation. Or in this case, what he's saying about, here his grandparents are basically telling him something. That's why I said, oh, this is great. Telling him something that most people say, oh, be careful with your mom. Wow. That was great. It wasn't a pleasant message, but it was a necessary message. It's not what you want, it's what you need. And I think to myself, I think there's moments where, here we're talking like family or friends that are passed on. And I think sometimes they need to go, or they do go by that rule, which is not what you want, it's what you need. And so I need to tell you this, and it might not be what you want to hear. I don't know. Sometimes I think that's how's this? That is the proof of a true psychic medium. And I know that maybe that's not the best for business, because let's face it, everybody wants to have that positive reading, but sometimes I don't think that that's always the reality of things. Sometimes it's not. It just isn't. And I did ask him, that thing, because I've heard of that I asked him about people not wanting to let the people that have passed on go, and they get hooked up on either calling psychics or even on the Ouija board, and they get all caught up in this because they want us to live their lives like if that person was still around, and they don't realize that you're going to have to, especially if it's at some point they're like almost afraid to make a decision on something, whether that person that passed on was a parent or a spouse or somebody, that they're almost afraid to make decisions, especially important ones, on their own. And sometimes the decisions don't have to be that major, by the way. It could be as in, should I go do this or should I do that? Or what do you think? And it's like, I can see where some people can fall into that problem, because they want to resume that relationship with that other person. Maybe most of the time had some say so, or made the ultimate decision. And basically that's a part of psychology where you're off the hook for the decision making part. And then what happens? Again, let's say you're the other person is the one that passed away, and here you are like, wait a minute, I've got to make this decision for good or for bad, for worse. So let me tell you, that's the thing about when other people make the ultimate decision. If it's great, it's great. And if not, it's like, well, you thought it was like your idea, that kind of deal. You thought it was going to be okay. And there's it's in a way, it's almost like a way of letting go of responsibility for making decisions that sometimes don't turn out good, which, by the way, is the human condition. It happens to everybody. Sometimes things are great, the outcome is great. Sometimes it doesn't make a difference. And sometimes it's like, wow, that was a really bad idea. The outcome, the result is sometimes more negative than others, but still, some people, for them, that's a very scary thing, to the point that they want to have that other person. And by the way, also this can extend beyond the spirit communication with even contacting the other side. And I'm not talking about a specific deceased person. Don't get me wrong. And because people will say, well, I prayed on this, or things like that, or I meditated, or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's going to be times where ultimately you're going to have to make a decision. All right. And then we could go down the road and say, well, what if you prayed on something, or you meditated, or you communicated, or whatever, and you were told, let's say you're at the fork in the road about, let's say a job change. Let's do that scenario. Job change. Either you've been offered another job, or you were thinking, I'm gonna go down this road, and you think about it, meditate, whatever, and all indicators are go and do the new job, or the new company, or the new department, or the new position, whatever. And sometimes it turns into maybe a very, very, if not one of the most difficult times in your life. And you're thinking, how did that happen? How did I end up? Wow, did I misinterpret, or what, was I delusional? You know what? I think there's times that nobody wants to think about this, because everybody wants to think that guidance is always going to be, how's this? Is going to save you from mistakes. And sometimes one of two things happens. Either this was something you had to experience for some reason, all right? Maybe you have been getting hints, hey, you need to make this change, you need to do this, and you weren't paying attention because of fear. And finally, they kind of like, when you push the baby bird out of the nest, like, here you go. We've been trying to get you to fly a little bit here and to fly. You haven't been paying attention. So now we're going to like, all right. And you're going to have to really rough it. So where you have to have that experience. And or this was the only way that you would learn that life skill, whether it's self-reliance or something maybe that you have been avoiding. And in other words, the advice that was given to you, it wasn't wrong. It was right. In that, either that and or that going through this process opened the door for you down the road, because I think a lot of people have had that experience. I've had that experience. Down the road, another door opened that you realize, if I had not gone through this rough patch after making that decision, I would never have ended up over here, which is much better. Or nothing, or in other words, I would never have been here if I would have stayed where I was at. I had to go through this difficult, and even though, in other words, and it wasn't a result of that. You can say, man, that was a rash decision. You just jumped in there and you didn't. No. I'm talking about something that's well thought of, whatever. And then, but you when you're in the middle of it, when you're in the thick of stuff, you don't get it. It's only after time goes by that you look back and you go, you know what? I learned a lot. I learned or self-reliance or, and now looking back, I realized that, hey, if it wasn't because I was there or I did that or whatever, I would never have found myself in this with this opportunity, okay, to do this. Because there's always those forks in the road. So yeah, sometimes everybody thinks that the guidance of, if you want to say from the spirit world or from God, from whatever your spiritual beliefs are, if you say your higher self, I don't care, wherever you want to source it from, it's always going to be the soft ride. Not always. It's not always going to be the soft ride, and it's not meant to be how can I say, malicious. And by the way, I don't believe in because I've heard of people sometimes saying, when bad things happen, oh, it's the left hand of God. I don't believe in that nonsense. I don't. I just believe that there's something innate in us that, let's face it, this is there's something that you needed to do, even if to make you a better you. You learn something about yourself or your abilities, or maybe you were shortchanging yourself as far as what could you do, what could you learn, how brave are you? Okay, let me tell you something. You want to develop your brave thing. Try putting yourself in difficult situations. All right, whether it's daily living or location or a moment, when they say when your back is up against the wall, this is when you really find out how brave you are. Not for real, not like I know I'm brave. And like I said, I'm not talking here like in the, everybody thinks in, wartime. I'm talking about brave as in everyday living kind of brave. Okay, Slim, you can tell. This is how you really learn. And either you're as brave as you thought, or braver, or not as brave as you thought. Or sometimes you learn along the way because you realize, if I don't handle this, if I don't face up to it, if I don't figure this out and just confront it or deal with it. How's that? If I don't deal with this, I'm going to get run over. And sometimes that's why you end up making difficult choices, or what later on you think, wow, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? Or why did I make that choice? Or why did I go out with that person? Or why did I take that job? Or why did I buy that car? It could be a host of things. And as you can tell, I'm the kind of person that I always try to see, that very overused trope of the half empty, half full glass. I'm that kind. I live in a friendly universe, and I see the glass half full all the time, as much as possible. I do. I think that there's always, sometimes in even the most horrible scenarios, you always think there's got to be something here that has an upside to it. All right. And I know something is going to be very dire sometimes, but there's always got to be an upside somewhere in there, and we don't have to, like, but again, we're talking here maybe extreme tragic scenarios. I'm talking here about everyday life, about what happens when you live life. All right. And I guess my bottom line is that sometimes we get this feeling of, the universe is picking on me, or God is picking on me, or somebody's picking on me and going, eh, eh, eh. Sometimes it's not that way. It's not, you know. So there you go. There's my 2 cents worth on life. So again, guys, please come back every week. I've got a lot of great guests lined up. New ones, returning ones like John Russell. And I'm going to test his links just to see which one is the best one. And I'm going to put a link in the credits of the show to his website. God, 3 to 6 month wait for a reading. Wow. And you know what? Again, go to Substack. Go to mppellicer.com. You're going to find links so you can sign up for my Substack. I said every 3, 4, 5 days, I put out an article. I put in maybe an old podcast, one of the older video interviews, stuff that, like I said, I watch it and I'm like, is this really old? And then that doesn't. No, they're still, even, and you know how I look at it. Sometimes I'll listen to some of these Art Bell interviews from 1997, and I'm like, man, this is really interesting. And how old is that? It's like, wow, this is really, really old. But to me, it still is like, man, this is 30 years old, this interview, but it's still interesting. So yeah, not that I'm saying I'm Art Bell. I wish, but no, I'm not. But yes, some of these older interviews are still just as interesting. So again, guys, thank you for coming back every week and spending this time with me. You're all wonderful. Till next time.